the preeminent legal minds in one of the greatest athletic facilities across the country. This is Courtside. I'm your host, Matthew Holmes, and today I'm joined by the Honorable Robert Luck for the 11th Circuit. Judge Luck, thanks for being here. For our first question, the layup, we have, between the SEC and the Big Ten, who produces better athletes and who produces better law clerks?
So athletes is an easy one for me. Take the big three sports, football, basketball, and baseball. Football, if you look at the current recruiting rankings, for example, 6 of the top 10 teams come from the SEC, whereas only 2 teams come from the Big Ten, Ohio State and Oregon. Take basketball. We're in the middle of the basketball season. If you look at the current top 25 rankings, 8 SEC teams are in the top 25, and only 5 come from the Big Ten. And if you look at baseball, which is just sort of gearing up right now, it's actually even more lopsided. 12 SEC teams are in the top 25, and only 1 comes from the Big Ten. So easy call, SEC has the best athletes. Law clerks is a harder call. For me, it's going to be the SEC by default, and that's because I've never had a law clerk from the Big Ten. Now, that's not my fault. For some reason, I'm just not getting good applications from the Big Ten. So I'm looking at you, Michigan. I'm looking at you, Northwestern. Send some applications my way. Florida's a lot better in the winter than the Midwest.
And now it's time for the mid-range floater. What inspired you to pursue a career in law? Did you think you were going to become a judge, or did that just happen by chance?
For me, I just wanted to be able to serve my country and my state in the best way that I could. I'm not much of an athlete. I'm not much of a big brain for science and for math. For me, the only talent I really ever had was this, and I just wanted an opportunity to serve. And so that's why I became a lawyer. It seemed the best way to be able to serve the law. In terms of being a judge, no. I had no plan to become a judge. I didn't go into law school. I didn't know any judges. The first judge I actually met was during my clerkship interview during my 3rd year of law school. This is something that sort of came as a part of a long process and I guess more in happenstance than some sort of grand plan. I think that's probably true of most people who get into it. It's hard to plan your career to be a judge. It's just something that happens during the course of a long legal career.
And now it's time for our Beyond the Arc question. This one's a 3-pointer. I know we're all tired of hearing about artificial intelligence and how it's going to change everything, but I'm interested to hear your perspectives on how AI is going to have an impact on the judiciary.
I think it's not an immediate one. I know there are some folks, including my colleague, Kevin Newsom, who sees AI as playing a prominent role in helping us to have a more objective textualist framework for interpreting statutes. He's used it in at least 2 cases that we've had and has written concurring opinions about it. I'm a little more skeptical about it because I'm a little more skeptical about what's going in. I go back to the old saying of garbage in, garbage out. Without knowing everything that's going into the AI models, it's hard to trust everything that's coming out of the AI models. And until we have a better grasp of that, I think I'm reluctant to use it in opinion writing and as a significant analytical tool. Where I think it's most helpful is on the research side. And so you see Lexis and Westlaw and a lot of the research tools using AI as a way to help take a lot of information and be able to redact it and to do easier searches and more fruitful searches. And I think that right now is the best use of AI. But I think I, like a lot of lawyers and certainly law students, are sort of interested in how this is all going to play out, but it needs to be done in a careful way so that we truly understand the technology.
Now it's time for our half-court shot. Failure is an inevitable part of sports, life, and the law. What's a mistake that you made in your legal career, and how have you learned from it?
Like anyone in the course of their career, they've made many mistakes, and I've made many. But let me focus on one because, we only have the court for so long. Over the years, but especially as I was starting out as a young lawyer, I really missed too many important moments in my family's life as I was trying to build a legal career. Too many missed dinners, too many missed ball games, too many missed dance recitals. And those are the things that I regret the most. In the end, when each of us is on our deathbed, when each of us is in our last days, there's nobody who says, I really wish I spent more time at the office, or I really wish I wrote one more brief or had one more oral argument. The things people miss at the end of those days is the time spent with family. And I've tried to correct that in the second half of my career. I've tried to be better about prioritizing family and being there for the important moments.
Now it's time for the buzzer beater segment. Number 1, if you had a judicial walkout song each time you entered the courtroom, what would it be?
All right, judicial walkout song is going to be the Star Spangled Banner. I still get goosebumps every time I'm at a ball game when it's played, and of course I'm patriotic, so it'd have to be the national anthem.
Number 2, what's your favorite legal movie?
Favorite legal movie is an easy one, My Cousin Vinny. A lot of great lessons for trial lawyering, and as a bonus, I'm a big fan of the state of Alabama. I serve it as an 11th Circuit judge. I lived there for 3 years as a law clerk. It's our neighbor state, and I think it comes off well in the movie.
Number 3, who is one mentor you had that's profoundly impacted your legal career? How so?
So the mentor who's had the most profound impact on me, I'm very blessed to have had many mentors through the course of my career. So again, as a buzzer beater, I'll limit it to one, and that has to be the judge that I clerk for, Judge Ed Carnes. Clerking for him was my first job out of law school, and I couldn't have imagined a better way to get a start. He truly is a brilliant mind, someone who's committed deeply to public service. He cares about the craft of writing, and he really takes an interest in his law clerks. And really looking back on it, there's so many lessons that I picked up from him just by his example, less by him telling me, and more by him showing me. And I've tried to take those same lessons as I've been on the bench for the last 12 years now. And really, what he did for me is by the fact that he is on my resume, or when anyone mentions my career that I clerk for him, I always come off better and seem smarter than I really am. And all that I've ever tried to do for my law clerks is to give them that same thing, that when they know, when a clerk looks back and has me on their resume and someone sees that they clerk for me, that they have that same look that I know I got for clerking for Judge Carnes, which is, wow, you really clerk for a great judge. That's a great experience. You must be a really great and brilliant lawyer. And that's all that I want for my law clerks.
Number 4, what's advice that you would give to a law student who aspires to obtain a federal clerkship?
Advice for clerkships on students. This one's probably a bit of one that's not common, and that is, don't overlook the state courts. I think too much focus in law school, especially on the clerkship searches, is on the federal courts. But the fact is that most law and most opportunities are actually on our state courts. And in fact, some of our state courts are doing some of the best work out there in the country. I can tell you that because I served for 6 years on the state courts of Florida, and I saw judges who were as brilliant, if not more brilliant, than any federal judge that I've ever served with. And I think having that experience, in some ways, the state courts are more understaffed, and they don't get as many great applicants as the federal judges get. Because of that, because they aren't getting as many good applicants, I think people who do apply to them get, in some ways, a better and more well-rounded and a deeper opportunity than those who clerk for federal judges. So don't overlook the state courts in your search application. I think you'll find that there are more opportunities for you, and chances are you're going to be doing practicing in the state courts. Having that experience is going to help you in your career.
So we have an overtime question here. I'm interested to know, Judge Luck, what have been the differences of being the apex court in Florida versus now being bound by Supreme Court precedent as an appellate court judge?
Being on the state Supreme Court is a vastly different job. The Florida Supreme Court in particular really wears 3 hats at one time. The first hat is the bar. In other words, the Florida bar is a arm of the Florida Supreme Court, and so the Florida Supreme Court leads all regulation and rulemaking for all lawyers in the state. The second is it is the chief administrative body for the judiciary. In other words, it serves as the head of the judicial branch, and through that, it does discipline and regulation of judges, and more importantly, all rulemaking in the courts. And then finally is the traditional hat that you're talking about, which is the case hat. And it decides, it doesn't have certiorari jurisdiction like the U.S. Supreme Court. It decides cases of conflict and great public importance to the state of Florida. Of course, my job on the Court of Appeals is very, very different from that. We're a court of last resort for all final judgments. And so for us, we hear everything. The Florida Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court only hear a small slice of cases, and yet we hear jurisdiction on just about everything. We don't have the same regulatory jurisdiction that a state Supreme Court does. We don't do lawyer regulation or judge regulation, and we don't do the same kind of rulemaking that those do. And so those are some key differences between my job now and my job on the Supreme Court.
And that's a wrap for Judge Luck. Thanks for joining us, and let's go play some ball.